Hello again, everybody. Okay, it's time for the fireside chat. I'm going to be bringing to the stage Tony Craddock, our Director General at the EPA, and also Gerhard Oosthuizen from Entersekt, CTO of Entersekt, and he can correct me on how I just pronounced his name completely wrong, I'm sure. So I'm just going to bring Tony to the stage. And Gerhard. There we go.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi, Tony. Ooh. Okay.
Hey.
You're both there.
Very good.
I'll leave you to it. I'll be back at the end and we'll talk topic tables.
Very good. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Gerhard. It's great to have you here. So, look, it's very windswept here in London, and it certainly, I think, it typifies our industry. We've got a flurry of things going on, flurry of consultations, got a flurry of new members at the EPA. I think it's 7 bundling down the highway, which is fantastic. Flurry of new announcements, new reports, the Khalifa report, the announcement from the Chancellor of the Exchequer about a range of different things, new stuff happening post-Brexit, and even stuff happening post-pandemic. Can I say that yet? Well, maybe not quite, but...
Not quite.
Well, we hope so. So, look, Gerhard, it's great to have you here. Thank you for hosting today.
Thanks for having us. We're great and excited to engage with all of you guys and learn about what's happening in your world.
Yeah, cool. So look, first of all, you're a patron of the EPA. You have been a little while. We met in South Africa a few years ago. Tell us a bit about Entersekt and your geographical spread and what you're up to.
So I mean, thanks, Tony. And yeah, I mean, Entersekt is, I think we're over 10 years officially now. And we started out in South Africa because South Africa actually had quite an advanced banking system, but there was still fraud happening. And we started sort of with that, trying to prevent payment fraud and account takeovers. We've been quite successful, I think, active in over 40 countries now, protecting over 100 million users on a regular basis and taking hopefully a lot of the fraud away from customers, so protecting consumers. But I think what we've said always is it's important to protect them, but you can't just have all the locks in place. You need to make life easier. So we want to enable good consumer journeys in payments, in 3D secure, in QR scanning, whatever you're doing. We enable that in an SCA compliant way.
Very nice, very crisp definition as well. So look, we've seen in the last 12 months all sorts of turmoil as a result of the changes that have changed how people behave. And of course, a lot of transactions have moved online. Now, you'd think by now that the payments industry had got its shit together. Did I say that? It's got its act together when it comes down to processing transactions on e-commerce. I mean, how effective do you think the checkout process is, and how efficient is it?
Yeah, we sort of help banks largely, so we're seeing it from the issuing side, and certainly with, you mentioned COVID, so it's probably allowed to say that, we saw a 30% increase in volume. That's people shopping more, but it's also a lot of new digital entrants that's being forced digitally into the world. And, a lot of times people don't talk a lot about the statistics, but we've recently seen in our own statistics and consumer statistics, and it's frankly terrible. I mean, between 15 and 20% of e-commerce checkout is abandoned and failed. Of that failure, 60% is customer frustration. So there's a lot of people, a lot of money being left behind. And then on the flip side in the industry, Tony, there's the risk systems and the fraud systems. And again, if you look at some of the reports from Ethica, 50% of the transactions that declined is actually legitimate transactions that wanted to purchase, but the transactions declined. So ultimately, there's that consumer out there, maybe the first digital entrant that's being forced to engage digitally. And, 20% of them are not successfully being able to check out. And I think that's not a great stat. That's not one to pat ourselves on the back with.
No, it's not you wouldn't call that a 10 out of 10. We're not scoring a hat trick, are we, on that one? I find it extraordinary, really, and I love our industry because we experience it all every day. I almost went into the cigarette tobacco industry where somebody said to me, the wonderful thing about this industry is people buy your product, 20 times a day, and I felt like saying lifetime value is not so great. But I was over the weekend. I went on. I cycle a bit of my hobby. For my hobby, I went onto a whole website, and I found the right size and exactly the right shirt for me. Which, of course, I do not need. This one, I do not need another shirt. I've got loads and loads. I popped it in the basket, and then I tried to go through. Now I know I've already spent a lot of money on this site. I tried to log in, and it was just painful. And this is a pre-payment experience, just a login experience, was just painful. And it's still sitting there. I got an email this morning saying, you've got something in your inbox. I'm thinking, well, you didn't bloody well recognize me when I was actually buy this product, did you? But actually, you recognise me when I haven't bought it. It's very, very odd.
Yeah, no, I think there's a couple of places where I can't remember what my favorite movie was, so I can't log into that site anymore. I think we've all got bad stories. I think fortunately the technology has moved on. The potential these days is there to get a great checkout experience. I think that the potential is there. I think there's a lack of understanding of what you can do. There's a view that security must be painful. They must ask you all 500 questions. And I don't think that's necessary anymore. I think there's potential. I think our goal as the industry is to help educate it and bring those use cases to fore and celebrate them when we get them right.
Yeah, I think that's right. And also kind of reinforce the behaviors that are going well. And when consumers learn, they learn forever. So that's the point about these things. Regulation, how well have they helped, do you think?
I think if we speak to most banks, they'll say regulation is hurt, right? Because it forces your hand to take certain action. And I think if you're under pressure, you're getting increased competition, consumer expects it, and then bam, you get hit with this regulation. Then the banks typically try to do the least possible, and I would probably too. I think that hurts. We've seen some of the stats now coming up. I think Microsoft, for instance, publishes monthly stats on how badly the SCA rollout is actually enabling checkout. It's actually hurt it and taking it bad. So regulation has hurt. I think we're going to go through that trough. The potential is there, but we haven't yet realized it. Yeah. We can work together to make that better.
So this is always the ironic kind of paradox around our industry. We want secure payments, but we want cheap and instant ones. And getting those two together, they're almost like they're pulling in separate directions. SCA when it works is really good.
I think so. It's got the potential to drive us towards passwordless, right? Because ultimately we love to hate passwords, and password is single factor. But you should just not think about is it's password plus anymore. With the technology available right now, the people buying expensive devices, we can actually get beyond password. And that's what we should be thinking, is to say, reimagine. It's not just the old plus a layer of old paint on top. Think new, and you can win. But I think, part of the challenge, Tony, for me is that there's such a lot of regulations. People are actually fighting against each other. The W3C has got a standard. There's delegated auth that's trying to say the merchant should authenticate. Then there's, the issuer is trying to get it right. And then in the middle comes click to pay and secure remote commerce, which says, no, we're the network. We'll take care of it. So I think sometimes there's lots of confusion in the market as well. And, which horse to back is a difficult game to play these days, and it's expensive. I don't know, Tony, where do you think it's going to end up with? Are we all going to have sovereign identities, or are we going to be, is one going to win?
So digital identity is on its way. And what is interesting is every country has taken it on in different ways because they've got different backdrops. Of course, you've got your Nordics experience is significant in your company, so you'll know this very well. But in those markets, particularly ones which have a strong banking ecosystem, and governments that respect the need for privacy, but also can see the benefits of a digital identity, have actually adopted some new approaches to this, which I think is great. What is curious is the countries such as the UK, which we really need digital identity here hugely. When I look at what I'm just about to have to do some traveling, and the thing I have to do to authenticate who I am and everything is just ridiculously time consuming. But we will get there. But the UK is doing it in a very different way. It's basically saying, let's spread out these common permissions, let's spread out these trust networks, and then the whole industry can bring the technologies that are going to be favorably compliant with these new approaches. I think that has great potential. It's backed by the government, but it's not with a big hurrah. It's not with a big splash. It's much more subtle. And I think we'll be using a digital identity in this country in the years to come, even though there's not any big bang.
Okay, so you think ultimately what's going to happen is that the government-based digital identity is going to be a winner, almost like rather than potentially, one which is self-sovereign and one which is potentially federated between different banks, where the banks become the agents. You think that the Aadhaar model, it drops down from the center, will be a winner?
I don't think it'll be one model. It'll be a regime.
Okay.
Which will support entrepreneurial activity welling up and filling the space that's created by the strong regime that's mandated by the government. I think, in other words, it's going to be both A and B rather than A or B. What do you think?
So you're saying more regulation? Is it going to be? The banks going to have to do that too? SCA version 3?
Yeah, heaven forbid. What do you think?
I think. For me, always it needs to go with the funding. You're either going to have a carrot or a stick model that's going to drive the industry. And I really hope it isn't a stick model where you're forced into doing it. Because what's happened with PSD2 is because people are forced, they do the least thing they can. I think it'll be great if we can find great examples, great references where it's worked, great case studies where somebody's made a success of it. And I think that's going to be the tipping point. If somebody can say, how are they utilizing the identity? How are they empowering their consumers and enabling them to travel better, to work better? I think that's what will win. Right now, we don't have those examples to speak of. We've got Canada that's doing great work. We've got, as you say, the Nordics that everybody looks towards. But even there's some challenges. So hopefully maybe the UK can be that example, Tony, and
who knows?
Can look towards you to make it better.
Well, who knows? It would be good. I think that a lot of this is about finding a common ground. I love this idea of sharing use cases, and you've got some topic tables where you were going to give people a chance to share use cases as well today, haven't you? I don't know whether we need to wait until Sarah pops back on the screen.
No, I mean, maybe I can quickly just talk us through.
Go ahead.
Oh, there we go. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello, go ahead on your topic tables.
Yeah, so we've got three. It was difficult picking topics. As Tony said, the payments industry is just moving so rapidly. We picked three. The one is a little bit playing on the identity, and we're picking up a lot of interest on delegated authentication and issuer authentication and government authentication, and which one's going to win. And I'll be tabling that topic to say, well, how's it going to play out? Ultimately, it's actually a fight for identity. The second table is around a topic that's getting a lot of traction. We've got FIDO, Fast Identity Online, that's now available in most browsers. And that brings a very powerful way to authenticate and enable a customer. And we're piloting some of the first payments use cases in that. So an interesting discussion around how you can rethink and what are the tools available and how FIDO can help you be SCA compliant. And then the last one is, there's a traditional way of paying, and then there's alternative payments and other ways to enable. And that's looking at QR payments, and alternative payments, paying via wallets, paying via proxy, and discussing some of the options, learning lessons and examples and best practices, telling you what we've done and sharing what others have done, and hopefully trying to further the discussion around how you enable customers in non-traditional form factors, proximity payments and things like that.
Brilliant. Well, I tell you, I'm going to be queuing up on those tables. They sound like they're going to be fascinating discussions. Thank you very much.
Just to quickly explain as well, we'll be rotating the topic tables every 15 minutes. I'll put an announcement out just to make sure everybody gets a chance to go on them. But yeah, get yourself a seat and we'll let you know when it's time to sort of move on.
Very good. Gerhard, the crew at Entersekt, thank you very much indeed. And looking forward to coming out on the floor and saying hi to everybody.
Lovely.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.
Cheers.